Hello, I'm Ricky and this is 1-2 Tax. In this video, we're looking at the requirements to be a tax resident in South Africa. So as you will recall from our introductory video on the personal income tax equation, as a South African tax resident, you must pay income tax on your taxable income in a particular year of assessment. So there are two common grounds for taxation of your income in South Africa. The first being if you are a South African resident, a tax resident, which means that your worldwide income is taxable in South Africa, as long as it falls under the definition of gross income, which we will look at in a bit more detail later. And the second basis is source, meaning that even if you aren't a South African resident, if you receive income from a South African source, then in principle that income is taxable in South Africa. We're not going to consider source at all. This course is aimed at South African tax residents, so we are only looking at income tax on South African tax residents. So now we'll consider what the requirements are for you to be a South African tax resident. So when I refer to an individual or a natural person or a human being, I am referring to the same thing. And I'll use those terms, particularly individual and natural person, interchangeably during the course of this course. So when is a person a tax resident in South Africa? There are two possibilities or two requirements, either of which can be met for you to be a resident in South Africa as an individual. So either if the person is ordinarily resident in South Africa, or if the person satisfies the physical presence test. For most people who live in South Africa, you will satisfy both those requirements, but if either one of them are satisfied, then you will be deemed to be a tax resident in South Africa. Now we'll have a look at each of those different tests and see what they entail. So, to be ordinarily resident in South Africa is basically that your permanent home is in South Africa. The term ordinarily resident is not defined in the Income Tax Act, but it has been looked at in detail over many years by our courts. And what it basically means is that to be ordinarily resident, you can only be that in one place at a time. And it is the place which you consider to be your home and the place which you will generally return to from your traveling. So for most people, it's quite easy to say where they are ordinarily resident, but there are some instances where it might be difficult. And that's why there is the second possibility, the physical presence test, which we will have a look at now. So the physical presence test is the second way that you can be seen as a tax resident in South Africa. As you can see on this graphic on the screen, it is more of a mechanical test. There's no gray area with this test. Either you satisfied or not. So to satisfy the test, you must be present for 91 days or at least 91 days in the relevant year of assessment, and you must have been present in South Africa for at least 91 days in each of the previous 5 years of assessment. And over that 5-year period, you must have been in South Africa for a total of 915 days at least. So that's quite a mechanical, simple process. It's a yes or a no answer. And you can access this graphic in the study notes. We will look at what a year of assessment is in our next video. Thanks.